Whether you live in Hood County or not, it impacts us. Whether you live in the city or you live in the county, we're all county residents. And we certainly appreciate, because this impact to our county impacts really all of Texas and far beyond. And you never know when you throw one of these if anybody's going to show up. When we were putting out the chairs today, I could see this big vacant room with all these chairs, but I think you think they're going to show up. Obviously, they're backed up out the door. As many of you know, if you paid attention during the campaign season, I committed myself to transparency and truthfulness to the Hood County residents. And I will continue to do so, to be transparent and truthful to each and every one of our residents in Hood County. We put these town hall meetings together late really in the campaign, one in Toler and one in Pecan, and it was amazing turnout, and I committed myself to continue doing this. As long as you come, we will continue to do these, whether it's once every 3 months, we haven't decided. But if we have information with the county, going on inside the county, that we feel like we need to let you know, we want to be transparent to you. There's only ways to get it is to have interactions like this. Beyond social media and the various news agencies. So I'm committed to continue doing this as long as you come. I appreciate the panel participating tonight. We've had some unexpected issues to pop up, and so our two commissioners, unfortunately, cannot attend tonight. We got the notification about 30 minutes before this started on the last one was unable to come. I know they're excited about participating in these. They've done the two before, and I know they'll be back with us as we move forward. But the panel, I appreciate we pulled some of them in at the last moment, and I'll introduce them in just a little bit. Tonight's theme, however, is we preserve the quality of life in Hood County. And you're going to hear that theme from us repeatedly tonight, the quality of life. You know, we're a county of tourism, recreation, the lake, low taxes, entertainment, everything that all of you, most of you came to Hood County or Somervell County around, came for those reasons. And I think you're like me, we're kind of shocked what's trying to take place in our county. And we've got to dig in, we've got to keep fighting. And as I said, I'm committed to fight, and I look around and see some true warriors and soldiers in this room with us tonight that I see every meeting, Commissioner's Court, even at Somervell County Commissioner Court. I see some of us showing up there because this impacts more than just Hood County. Our leaders' priorities should be safety, security of our citizens, job one. The quality of life, in my opinion, should be job two. And we have to focus. And I'm telling you, as your county judge, I hope to work closely with the city leaders. I hope to work closely with the other county leaders around us. And I want to preserve the quality of life in Hood County. In my opinion, there's no them and us in this when it comes to the citizens and the county and city leaders. The them and us are those industrial complexes that are trying to come in our county and all the counties around us and disrupt our lifestyle. That's, in my opinion, the them and us. We got interviewed, as Eva mentioned earlier, before this took place. The WFAA come out and interviewed us, and they want to know what my stance was, and I said I'm a solid no, because I see no benefit that outweighs the potential risk to these things. And even though I keep asking, what's the benefit, what's the benefit, what's the benefit, maybe somebody will say money, but I don't think money's worth sacrificing what we've got here in lovely Hood County. So I remain steadfast in the commitment to keep the transformational industrial growth, such as data centers and the power plants out of our county, out of our beautiful county. And that transformational industrial growth came from two letters that we're all familiar with from back in July. So the question remains how we maintain the quality of life while we fold into our county all the new increased growth. I believe we need to be strategic and careful on how we allow industry to come in. I'm not against industry. I believe we need businesses in this town. I believe we need businesses in this town that can come and offer young people an opportunity to stay in Hood County, to come to Hood County, to provide a living for their families. We are having growth, and I think we can accomplish that by working together. But I was doing some research this week, and I don't know if any of you know this, maybe some of you long-time Hood County residents do. In the 1980s, the decades of the 80s, we had 177% growth from the 70s. Think about that. Now, I didn't write down the raw numbers. Obviously, they were 6,000 or 7,000 range. But we grew 177% in the decade. In the 90s, we grew 63%. And in 2000, a mere 20 years ago, 49% growth. 2025 is estimated on this demographic study at 14.5%. Ladies and gentlemen, if we can survive the boom of the 80s and the 90s and 2000s without changing the lifestyle and the quality of life in Hood County, I say to you, we can do this. We can do this working together. And we don't have to change our lifestyle and quality of life. So that's enough for me. I'll probably be weighing in. I do want to introduce our esteemed panel. Mr. Harold's down there. He's changing his comments as we speak. It's funny. Where's Andy Wolford? Andy Wolford comes into a commissioner's court with this articulate, data or detailed statement, and then while he's sitting there, he's writing it all over. I don't know. Anyway, Greg Harrell is the GOP chair for Hood County, and also SR. He's also the SREC 22. So he's got a full plate ahead of him, and we're getting ready for the convention. Greg may or may not. Christine Lethbridge is our county clerk and the chair lady of the development committee. We've had a lot go on in the Development Commission and Commissioners Court over the last few meetings, and Christine may address some of that. Chip Johnson is the Somerville Commissioner, Precinct 3. I met. And he literally didn't force it, but he bulldogged a resolution by Somerville County this last Commissioners Court. Steve Diaz is our attorney representative today, and he's also a bull raiser. What do you?
Stock contractor.
Stock contractor, raising bulls for bull riding. I've gotten to know Steve. I consider him a friend now. He's an ally of ours. He works in California and here. I'm trying to get him moved here full time, open up a shingle. And then Kurt Testy is a global architect. He's a board member of Protect the Biloxi. And I just rode my motorcycle through Biloxi about a week and a half ago. Unbelievable amount of signs are up there now, people trying to sell the property. I don't think it's because the price is up. I think because people are fearful. Well, I don't want to use the word fearful. They are uncertain what's going on. And then our bullpen tonight is Matt Long. Most of you know Matt. What we plan on doing is briefly, you guys can take a minute to introduce yourself. Greg, you got a mic, we'll work it this way. And then we're going to go back, and then each one's going to cover some of the topics that they have prepared for today. And I think I skipped by Andy, didn't I, Andy Wolford? He's an MIT graduate. Enough said, I hit him on a little bit as editing his notes, but Andy will speak on it. He's a very brilliant man also. We got some tremendously talented people in this county, ladies and gentlemen. People that are talented and working, and a lot of people talented that are retired that can help us defend ourselves. So with no more ado, Greg, would you want to start out and introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Good. Well, hello everybody. My name is Greg Harrell, as Mark pointed out. I am the Hood County Republican Chairman. I also serve in the capacity of of the State Republican Executive Committee, SC 22 committeeman, so I have responsibility to oversee 10 counties plus parts of 2 other counties on behalf of the Republican Party of Texas. And I came to this issue honestly because I noticed that Hood County, as we moved through the winter, Hood County was becoming really kind of a hub for this data center development. And so in February, I drafted a resolution that I took down to the Republican Party of Texas, the SREC, and we presented that resolution, and the following day, so for February 7th, that resolution regarding data centers, and it's asking the state government to really begin to get a handle on these data centers and to assist the counties in the state of Texas to give them some role into being able to regulate that. And I'll talk about that more a little bit later. But that resolution passed on February 7th down in Austin by the State Republican Executive Committee by a vote of 61-0 with only 1 abstention. So what that does, yeah, thank you, I mean, that's great. What that does is it gives the elected representatives for the state of Texas some guidance about the Republican thinking on this issue of data centers, and it gives them in a big way, and this is very important for an elected official, it gives them in a big way really political cover, because they can say, hey, the party is taking a position on this, and I'm aligning myself with that party position. So I look forward to speaking to you a little bit later on this evening.
Thank you, sir. I'm Chip Jocelyn, Commissioner of Precinct 3, Somerville County. And hello. I had the opportunity this morning to have a bit of a bountiful moment. Does anyone remember that movie? Anyone remember Trip to Bountiful? Yes? No? Yeah, thank you. Tough crowd. Anyway, so Miss Liz Campbell with 4-Star Telegram called me, and we had a nice conversation this morning, and she's like, what got you into this? What got you into the data center battle? And I was like, well, I thought for a minute, and it was obviously Cheryl Chatton, who it's been what, Cheryl, like 3 years, over 3 years now? It seems like a decade, but you know, I was, you know, a little bit of a skeptic. I like to do a lot of research and talk to a lot of people and get a lot of input, namely my constituents, because they're the ones that elected me. And Cheryl invited me over to a rally at her house, and you know, I'm not an anxious person at all. And I was standing out in her front yard, and my heart felt like it was jumping out of my chest in like an hour. And I'm like, what is going on? And she said, this is my life. This is what I live every single day. And so the next time I went back, and I couldn't stay much more than an hour, but the next time I went back, I wore ear protection, thinking that would help. It didn't help. So, you know, God bless you and what you've done for this cause. But that's where it started with me, was Bitcoin. And of course, you know, data center is you know, from what they're saying and my research has shown me, it's a little bit different. AI is a little bit different, but it's all, put it all in the same pot. They come to our communities, they take our natural resources. Somerville County is the second smallest county geographically. How many counties in the state of Texas? 254. It's not, you know, I remember that, it's our area code. So, it's easy. So, anyway, you know, so who's going to stop it? You know, do we depend on Austin to stop it? I mean, Austin can help us, but as we've seen, the different communities have really rallied together and come together, supported one another. And you know, when I was when I presented the resolution on Monday for Somerville County, which I'd already presented 2 other times, and I'd already presented a moratorium that fell, and you know, and so I was like, well, let's try it again. And I looked out in the audience, and there was a dozen Hood County folks out there, and very intelligent and smart Hood County folks that came and supported us, and we passed it unanimously 5-0. So. And I'm sorry you got stuck with me because, you know, like Mr. Lowery said, the other commissioners called in sick, so you got stuck with me. So thanks for having me.
Evening. I'm Andy Wolford, about 3-year resident of Granbury. I came up here chasing grandkids, and we found the town to be very friendly, started making some friends, and my first exposure was going to a friend's house that lived in Mitchell Bend. And they exposed me to the Mara plant, and I started reading about Bitcoin mines that exist in Granbury, and then I began getting pushes from social media about all the data center initiatives here. And so I've got a background where I can kind of look at this in a very technical way. My background is a degree in nuclear engineering, and then I went very quickly into the offshore oil and gas and petrochemical facility engineering world, assessing the risks. And I've spent 4 decades committing my life to making plants safer by understanding how they go wrong. And so that's the lens I'm looking at all these data centers with. So if they get to the point where I can see their technology, I can probably find a reason why they may not need to be here in Hood County.
Good evening, Christine Lethwich, Hood County Clerk. The county clerk is the custodian of records for the county, and what's important about that is that everything that goes through Commissioner's Court is documented and ends up in a document repository. Those documents tell the story of the county. We can look back and we can see how decisions were made, why they were made, and we can also see that there were things that were not utilized. You know, through research, when we started realizing this industrial invasion that is facing Hood County, you know, I started looking back at the regulations and things like that, and that's when I stumbled upon the strategic plan that had been put together back in 2000. And through the strategic plan, discovered that Hood County had Local Government Code 231 Subchapter K. Obviously, you know, none of us had ever heard about that before this last year. And what's extremely unfortunate is that our past Commissioner's Court, and no one that's on the court today, but our past Commissioner's Court had a regulation that they used to help form these development regulations. At the time, you know, Hood County, we had homes going up, you know, maybe small subdivisions, you know, this was a lake community, and never faced with any kind of industrial development. And so, you know, while we have some good things in there, it's unfortunate that we're only now learning about that statute and seeing how our regulations were not, were not designed to address industrial development. We know some of the breakdown that occurred in the county and why that happened. It should have been a big red flag to say when some of these developments started coming in and making plans and things like that, hey, you know, we don't really have, instead of just a blanket, you know, yes, we can't regulate unincorporated areas, but we've never dealt with things like this before. So, and as we talked about, you know, our Commissioner's Court had passed a moratorium before, which is what, when the Development Commission, when we formed, that was our first order of business. We need a moratorium. We have this local government code. We have the right to protect our water, our rural character, you know, all of this. And we worked hard on that. And I know so many citizens came out and spoke in favor of that. And it's been the biggest disappointment I still just get so angry about it that our court, that we had that 2-3 vote and the moratorium failed, because I feel like if we had gotten that through, we'd have a little bit of breathing room right now. There are counties passing moratoriums that do not have local government code 231 sub K. They have less regulatory authority, and yet they have done it. Van Zandt and, most recently Hill County and things like that. Hood County should have been the tip of the spear for this, in my opinion. We should have legislated. And I haven't discussed this with Matt yet, but I think we're going to talk about it at our next development commission. I want to bring the moratorium back. It's unfortunate that we have only 4 on the court right now with our county judge being out. But if it ends up in a 2-2, it does, but we need to do that fight again.
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Steven Diaz. I am an attorney. I'm licensed to practice here in Texas. I'm also licensed to practice in California. I have offices in both states. I came out here about 4 years ago, right? And I came out here not to practice law. I got tired of what was going on in California, and I wanted to raise my son out here. And one of the main reasons I actually came out here is what the judge-elect Lowery started to talk about was I raise bulls. And I got into the bull business a number of years back, and we found a property that was perfectly suited for us, and I chose to move my family from California out here. And that has, when we moved out here, it was probably one of the most peaceful places that I've ever seen in my life. We have an absolutely beautiful property that backs up to Comanche Peak. You have dark skies. You have a lovely, quaint little town. And I never thought that I wanted to file lawsuits against the city of Granbury. Never thought I wanted to file a lawsuit against the city council, the mayor, or any of those. But we are facing a point in time where there's 11,000 people that live in Granbury proper. 11,000 people. And I think if you ask any individual in Granbury, how would they describe Granbury? A quaint little town. Yes, they might have some complaints that the traffic is a pain in the backside. Yes, they might have some complaints that it has grown a little more than they would like, but I think at the core, everybody would say it's a beautiful place to raise your family, it's a beautiful place to retire. And now, we're on the cusp, in the last 12 months, we're on the absolute cusp of 10 to 12 data centers coming in with a total of 10,000 acres of buildings. They're going to take rural land and turn 10,000 acres approximately into concrete buildings. And each one of those 10 to 12 units are going to have a corresponding power plant. And that corresponding power plant is going to have what? It's going to take your water. The data centers are going to use your water. It's going to pollute the air. And then you take one step further back and you look at where are they electing to put these? The one most interesting to us, I think, for today's conversation would be the Knox Ranch one, because that one's probably the biggest and the biggest at this instant moment, right? What is it? 1.5 miles from a high school? 1.5 miles from an elementary school? 1.5 miles from a hospital? For what purpose? And you have to ask yourself, how exactly did we get to where we are today? Why are we here? Anyway, I intend on speaking a little bit later about the Freedom of Information Act and transparency in the government.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kirk Teskey. I'm an architect. I have spent a 42-year career as an architect, and most recently I've been serving as the Executive Vice President of HKS. HKS is a big firm, global firm. You know us from our big NFL stadiums, the Cowboys, SoFi, Vikings. My oversight was everything but sporting venues, schools, and hospitals. So I had oversight over office buildings, residential towers, senior living facilities such as this, a lot of hospitality, and a lot of office. But we we also do data centers. But I want to tell you that up until just recently, data centers were small buildings, 130,000 square feet, and they were in places that were zoned for industrial places to receive them. That's no longer the case. So when you hear people on on social media telling you that I'm the architect of AWS and campus out here, that's false information. But one of the things that I also did before I moved into an executive role is I headed up the MGM City Center development in Las Vegas in the late 2000s. And I mentioned that project because it was touted as the largest private development in U.S. history when we were doing it. It was a big project. It was a whopping 15 million square feet, roughly. So I mention that because what you have going on here, some of these projects, the Comanche Circle project adjacent to the Black Mountain project that's in Somerville, they're contiguous. They're both sitting above Dinosaur Valley State Park. Both of those put that project to shame. They're talking 4,000 square feet. I mean, 4,000 acres of development. So I want to share that with you because I'm experienced in big projects. I find it very interesting that Hood County has this special subchapter K regulation specifically to protect the watershed. And there is not anything I can imagine that will harm the watershed greater than what is being proposed. These are not just big buildings, they're just one-story buildings. And so the amount of land that they consume and the amount of excavation that occurs is mind-blowing. So that's the reason that I joined some of my good friends and started Protect the Biloxi Valley, Inc. And I appreciate your support of that organization. We are doing our best to battle for both Somerville County and Hood County on these topics. And would appreciate you looking them up and becoming familiar with what we're doing there. Dinosaur Valley State Park, the most visited state park in all of Texas, is in jeopardy of being destroyed. The silt from construction will cover those tracks. And they'll be dumping their effluent and waste into the streams as well. So thank you. Well, I will. Yeah, I do have to leave a little early, so I'll just share a couple of things with you. The Hood County regulations have 3 different districts. They have a road district where they want to push most of the. Well, let me back up. The state expects orderly development in this county. Orderly development. We do not have orderly development going on right now. But subchapter K expects orderly development. There are 3 districts that are provided that are to try to help direct where development occurs. And your roadway districts, pretty typical, they are the areas that you're trying to locate development. And then you've got your water quality districts, and they encourage residential development, but there's some strict requirements around that. In the rural districts, which is most of this county, you can't even do a duplex apartment without changing and getting approval to go from one district, to change that rural area to a roadway district or a water quality district. But for some reason, we think we're going to allow massive data centers in the rural area. And the definition of the rural area in the Hood County regs is to conserve the rural quality of the district. And and to enhance the quality of life of the residents that live there. So, let you guys tell me how a data center is going to do that.
And many of you may know this as well as I do. It also talks about the general welfare of the community. Christine, you want to follow up with the regulations and what's been changed, maybe the percentages and some of those, and if Matt needs to get in to step in with something else.
Right here? Okay. So, when we weren't successful in getting the moratorium through, we went back and started talking about the area that you can develop on a lot. And one of the things in subchapter K says that we can regulate, the Commissioner's Court of Cook County may regulate the percentage of a lot that may be occupied or developed, the size of buildings, and location, design, things like that. There's a lot of things, but the two that we hit on was that lot percentage and the size of buildings. And so we decided we would come up with some definitions of what industrial development was, limiting the size of the building, and the older regulations had it where they could develop up to, I think it was, is it 50%? We got that down. We proposed 10%. We were successful in getting that through the court. We had the support of one of the commissioners who had been on, who hadn't been in favor of the moratorium, and we had actually had the blessing of the county attorney, because that is an express power right here in the statute, and so we were successful in doing that. The problem is, when those went into effect, was after we had already received some of these projects. And so we have been unable to really apply that to these projects because they got their plans in, as paltry as they were. You want to add anything to that?
The only thing I would add is that the broader issue was that the commissioners that were voting no against the moratorium were voting no because they were saying subchapter K didn't expressly grant, meaning it wasn't specifically written in subchapter K that Hood County can do moratoriums. So part of that moratorium order was to add that ability to our regulations. So it was like a double vote. But we did feel like we could get those regulation changes because the things that we were changing were expressly granted in subchapter K. And it has been a frustrating process. It's like regular government, I guess, where you want to go in and you want to get something done, but there's just not enough votes to get that done, and so you've got to get the next best thing done. I've had frustration with it because I feel like from 10,000 miles away, I can see us constructing our own future enslavement, which has been very disappointing that Hood County would, in a way, want to play a part in that. And it's just something that I'm diametrically opposed to. So, I guess if you guys don't know, you can get all the information so far that's out there at rejectbigtech.com. You can also go to the Hood County Development Commission's website. Christine has all the documents up there, even more documents that she has laid out in front of her right there. That's a perfect county clerk. She brought everything printed out. And then you guys can find me at DataBad on Facebook. I try to put out all the important events and stuff as they come, the things that we need to show up to.
I see a lot of familiar faces, but I see some new faces I haven't seen before. This might sound like foreign language to you, because it certainly did to me for years. But this subchapter K gives us great power. We believe, even our legal minds say that we have great power from this. We could have established a development commission years ago, and we did not. As Christine pointed out, we used a moratorium in early 2000s, and nothing happened. Nobody got sued. There is a fear that we would get sued over this. But the argument on our side is that we would rather do the moratorium, take the risk of getting sued, and have this move forward. The other problem is, some of these concept plans, they're not even concept plans. They are I think Matt pointed out one time they were just written basically in crayon. And they were being presented and being accepted at the next level. So what's happened, ladies and gentlemen, in Hood County, the Development Commission now, correct me if I'm wrong, Christine and Matt, the Development Commission now will see all the proposals that come in, and they get to look them over for the regulations, applicable regulations, and then they can make a recommendation to the court on whether they should be accepted or not. Some of these applications are clearly not completed accurately, not completed fully. We don't know in some of these cases, we don't even know who the owner would be or who is the company that's proposing it. It changes seems like almost every commissioner's court. But I will say this, we have commissioners and we have a clerk, we have a development commission that's fighting. Every day they meet, they're fighting for us in Hood County to keep this stuff out. And there's a lot of stuff inside this chewed up piece of bubble gum, but they're sorting through it and making a good effort for us to protect ourselves. The ones that are in question are the ones that have been submitted previously. The argument can be made, they weren't accurate, complete. Anybody want to add anything further to this?
Let me just add something to that, I'm sorry. Nick, you're right, you've got subchapter K. What's frustrating me is your legal counsel in the county seems to have his own agenda. I'm used to legal counsel that can help me legally get to where I want to go. And I just don't see that attempt. The intent of the law is clear. Yes, the black and white part of it is a little muddy. But the intent of the law is very, very clear. And I would like to see the legal counsel of Hood County work to try to achieve the goals and objectives of the citizens of this county.
So I'll just echo the sentiments of Commissioner Samuelson. We're missing her and Commissioner Eagle tonight. And this came up in the court yesterday, and it's come up in court before. It's come to light that things have not been being handled the right way. Things have been done wrong. And it doesn't make any sense to continue to do them the wrong way. She's been saying all along, here, we have to right this ship. We have to right this ship. And so we're fighting that again because not everyone is on the same page with us in the county about trying to say, it doesn't matter that we did it this way before. Clearly, we have learned that this is wrong. We've got to do this now. We've got the power. Let's do it.
And this may have been said before by me or maybe Christine or someone. This has never been tested in the court. So we got an open field. We can run this thing as hard as we want until the courts say no. Greg, you look like you got the mic ready to go.
Well, I just want to point out one thing that has happened here in Texas, and this is really important to put all of this issue into context for us Texans, we the people. What we have is we've got a situation in Texas where through the Constitution of Texas, the counties themselves do not have authority. They were not granted authority to regulate a lot of these issues and these items that we're discussing right now. Now, I have a theory that what has happened, that these hyperscalers were invited here into Texas, and their timing is perfect. The legislature of the state of Texas only meets for 140 days every 2 years. So right after the 89th legislative session ended, it seemed like we saw this huge influx of what we call hyperscalers. I've got to tell you, at the end of the 89th legislative session, I didn't even know what a data center was. It wasn't on anybody's radar. Yes, we knew about Bitcoin, but all of a sudden we've got these applications flooding into these rural counties. flooding into these rural counties in Texas, and places like Hood County, we begin to face these issues. These are issues that we have never faced before. This is technology on a scale that we have never seen before. Mr. Teskey said that there are 10,000 acres of planned data centers here in Hood County alone. I mean, if you count Bitcoin, that's a total of 9 data center campuses. That's about 4% of the total surface area of the entirety of Hood County. 4%. Imagine that. It would be covered with these industrial facilities. And so what I see is, I see that we as Texans, because we value our freedom, because we love being left alone, because we love our property rights and we want to do on our property what we will, the data center developers saw all that as a huge regulatory vacuum, and they swooped in here like crazy, as quickly as they could get here. It's the gold rush of this decade. And so we are seeing people come here to Texas, not with your interest at heart or your interest at heart. They don't care anything about that. These are people from Florida and California that are coming here to make a quick dollar. And we need to be brave enough to stand up and say, it's not going to happen in Texas.
You hear a lot of talk about, it's my property rights. I have the property I want to have, do what I want to do on the property. However, when your use of your property directly affects the use and enjoyment of the person next to you, then you have an issue, and that issue needs to be addressed. And that is one thing that really needs to start, people need to start talking about, because that's not what's being discussed. All you hear is property rights, property rights, property rights. But now they are directly affecting the neighbors and the neighboring communities. And some of these communities, I mean, some of the noise that's being caused by, well, in this case, the Bitcoin line, I see that they're here in the background, but a lot of it is not limited to only a few, even a quarter mile. I mean, people have said that you can hear it from miles away, especially when it starts to follow the river. And that's a stunning aspect of how offensive this actually is to the neighboring communities.
So a couple things. We were blessed to have our ancestors prior to us put us subchapter K. They had no clue what we were going to face in 2025 and 26. They got this passed, and we need to take advantage. We're blessed. All the other counties, Somerville County, talking about asking the legislation to give them subchapter K authority like us, because they have the watershed in them. Wood County. So we're very fortunate, ladies and gentlemen, to have this. You got to stay involved. Those of you who are soldiers, like I see Cheryl's over there. Yeah, we've got people here that's going, get involved. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Let them know this is going on, and they need to step up and speak to the legislators in 96, in 2027.
Yeah.
But talk to your commissioners right now. Chip, you had something else like that?
Oh, I was just gonna say that Somerville County is Hood County's watershed. So, I mean, everything flows to Somerville County through, every aquifer, every river, stream, creek. We get everything off of the 10,000 developed acres, basically, so.
It's like we said,
Hello. But like we said a few times before about the invisible border. So, my precinct is the closest one to Mara, and I have many constituents that have to put up with it. The view was damaged by it, the noise. I'm all the way, I don't know who knows Somerville County, but I'm between the Expo and what used to be the Promise, the amphitheater. My house sits on top of that hill. I can hear the Bitcoin mines from my house, when the winds come in that direction. So we're all affected. Everything that Somerville County does affects you guys and vice versa. Just, you know, on a quick note, and to thank Mr. Harrell and a few other mentors that I had in developing our resolution, because he was kind enough to let me borrow some of his language. You know, AWS is coming. You know, Amazon is coming. And so if they don't work out a deal with Hood County's already kicked them to the curb once. And so they came to Somerville. Sadly, we brought them in with a vote of 3-2. And so they're coming. And so, but they're at Comanche Peak. And so, you know, that's right on the border. So when all the construction workers come in, the thousands of construction workers come in, they're going to be coming down 377, and what's about to happen to 377? They're going to be coming down 67 through Somerville County. They're talking about a project to widen it. There's not any of my county roads in my precinct or anywhere in the entire county that are strong enough structurally to support the weight that's about to come. So, and I don't know if you guys have kept up with Abilene, but they're having 4 and 5 hour delays in traffic every day going to and from work. So if all of our, and that's with roads not under construction, if all of our roads are under construction, you know, we don't have the infrastructure here for this period. So for them to give them open arms and let them come in is, you know, it's, you know, immoral. So.
Chip, I think when this very first started, it was very clear to me that the road structure around here in most of these are off 2-lane roads. They're not equipped to handle that traffic, and there will be fatalities. I will say there will be fatalities. But somebody mentioned the sound. You know, beware of what the developers will tell you. They will tell you that, well, these data centers don't make any noise. And to be honest with you and truthful, the data centers themselves do not make a lot of noise. But they have thousands of diesel generators that they have to exercise. And you will get the sound of those diesel generators being run. As many of them as there are, they're going to be running some of them all the time. I mean, there'll always be some on. But as Greg mentioned, each one of these comes with a power plant or more. Some of them are proposing 3 power plants. Those are going to be air cooled, and they're going to make a lot of noise. They're not like a power plant that's sitting on a lake. They're a power plant that have to cool themselves with a ton of jet fans, probably like what you have at Wolf Hollow. So be aware of that. Also be aware that when you hear the closed loop comments about how they don't use much water, they all still use some form of evaporation. And the thing that you need to always keep in mind that those power plants are probably going to use significantly more water than the data centers themselves. So be aware of that.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. I hope you realize we're bringing subject matter experts in here. We're not bringing people that don't know what they're talking about. And my plea is to the court to listen to these people. The Development Commission got a council, advisory council now with people like this that can come in. Nothing against the court. Their job is something completely different. We got subject matter experts living in and around this county can help us navigate through this disaster. Go ahead, Andy.
So, hello. So I'm going to go backwards to something that Mr. Teskey said just because it impressed me a lot. Now, you're hearing from a gentleman who is a premier architect of mega projects for 42 years. And at one of the meetings, he talked to the group that were in Wood County Court and said, you can't imagine the scale of one of these data centers because I can't imagine the scale of one of these data centers. Just let that register with you. He's built mega projects his entire career. So I didn't want to jump on the back end of this comment, closed loop cooling, or we can mitigate the noise. you gotta be careful. The words mean a lot. When a developer talks to you about the data center, they're probably talking about the data hall, which is a very cheaply built building that provides air conditioning and power to thousands and thousands of computers. They're not talking about the associated utilities they're also going to build or borrow or buy. Power plants, backup power generation, battery electric storage, water and water cleanup. And so, okay, they don't use much water because they use closed loop, but the power plant's not using closed loop cooling. And we're talking about millions of gallons per day of power plant. And so you gotta look at the entire project and its impact on our good county.
Also talk about this briefly, if you want to talk about your trip to Abilene and what you experienced over there. Could we talk about that a little bit?
So when it became apparent that we were going to be dealing with some type of a data center fight here in Hood County, I decided to take two of our county commissioners on a field trip over to Abilene, Texas, Taylor County, to see the Stargate project, which is a massive hyperscaler facility that's being built over there. And the Taylor County Sheriff was kind enough to take us on a tour, such as it was, of the construction project. And I have been involved in massive mining operations, and the best way that I could describe what we saw in Abilene was a massive mining scale operation like you would see in open pit copper mining in Arizona. The sheriff, as he drove us around, and we were only able to drive around the periphery of the construction site itself, but he was telling us stories of construction trucks that were lined up for 4.5 miles to try to get into the facility. They had rerouted entrance into the facility 3 times in an attempt to mitigate the traffic tie-ups that were being caused by this construction site. The truckers are so out of control trying to deliver because they get paid by the load. They're so out of control that if you're in a neighborhood that is even close to the construction site, they'll cut right through the neighborhood. If there's a vacant lot, they'll drive right through the lot in order to get that load delivered into the construction site itself. So I can only describe to you that it is a massive impact on the community. Now keep in mind this fact, Hood County, as Mark mentioned earlier, Hood County, what are we known as? We're known as a tourist destination. I mean, we are a quaint little city. When you enter into Granbury itself, it says, where Texas history lives. And I love that. I love that part of living in this county. But I'm going to tell you that during the construction project, if we allow even one of these data centers, and we probably will have to deal with the Amazon site at Comanche Peak, but we are in for congested roads, full hotel rooms. You won't be able to probably go out to eat for a while because there's 10,000 employees on the Stargate project right now. So these are massive projects that really have the ability to impact every part of our way of life here in Hood County or anywhere that these things are built in rural Texas. Forget about the stars at night are big and bright deep in the heart of Texas. When you start with these data centers, that song goes away and we no longer see the skies. The sheriff told me that's the thing that he actually misses the most over there in Taylor County. He can't see the stars anymore. So it's a huge issue for us, and there are a lot of what I would call non-tangible effects with these data centers.
Let me address the trip that he took. I went to Irving to look at the data center that some of the city went to. I went on January 1st, went that exciting January 1st with my wife. And it's like a postage stamp compared to what they're talking about putting in here. So when you go up and look at that facility is nothing compared to what they're talking about bringing in here.
And one thing that absolutely nobody's discussed yet so far is the situation that's gonna go on with housing, right? This is just a little side note. I was fishing with my son down on Lake Granbury, maybe just a little bit off the Stumpies. And we ended up talking to a gentleman who was on his dock. And he told me that they were renting their house there, and they were working on the AWS center going up in Cleburne. So they're driving from Granbury every day because there's no housing in Cleburne to support all the people that are working, putting up AWS in Cleburne. So the housing, there's gonna be a housing shortage, there's gonna be a spike on rental properties, on the value of rental properties, and it's gonna directly affect tourism when you cannot get a hotel.
Hello, yeah, that was what I was going to address too. So, I mean, at our last census, we were just under 10,000 people total in our county. So if you bring in 5,000-6,000 people, where are they gonna stay? So, well, they're gonna go to Granbury, they're gonna go to these other areas. And, just in my precinct alone, I already have 5 trailer parks coming in. And there's a few single family homes, but not very many. So certainly not 50% more than we have now. So they have to go somewhere, and there's probably going to be a lot of them have to come to Granbury and maybe Stephenville. And if this guy's coming from Cleveland, that tells me that there's probably not a lot left in Cleveland. So where do they go?
Yeah, let me, firstly, I don't want you to walk out of here and figure, okay, this bag's over with, we have no chance, as a snowball does to win this. We gotta continue to fight. It's not over. I don't think we're trying to depress you. What we're trying to give you is the insight so that you can reach out to people you know, including your commissioner, and say, listen, we gotta put a stop to this stuff. We talk about roads. We got a 130-some million road bond. We're supposed to get a $700 million road bond from the state, which means you're gonna start working on 377. What do you think, 3 to 5 years? I was lived up in Grapevine when they did the Follow project. That was a nightmare. So we do the road on 377 at the same time we're trying to build a dance center. So tourists that come here, it's like an old tale. We've been coming here for generations for our vacation, bringing our children here. When they get cut off from that, they're not gonna come with that mess. And as soon as the family finds they can go to Broken Bow, they can go to Fredericksburg, all of a sudden, you know what? Maybe we don't have to go back to Granbury. That's what our city leaders and our county leaders to realize. This is an opportunity for us to stop this and preserve our county and our city for what it is. Because once we break that tourist celebration, state or city of Texas, once we break that, people, even if it's 10% don't come back, it's a big number. I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that in real estate, deals have lifespans. And when you have investors, the longer you can make that investor sit there, the less excited he is about the project. And I'm glad you mentioned that we are not coming at this from a position of loss, but from a position of victory. And I do still have great hope that we can stop, that we have a chance to stop every one of these. And to my knowledge, there's not been a single transaction yet on any of these projects. What that means is people have land tied up through a contract or a letter of intent, and they have a due diligence period. And that due diligence period is when they're going to see if this deal works. They're trying to get the county to say, yes, you're approved to do this. And the longer we can push back and say, we don't know, or no, you're not allowed, the less likely they're going to be able to get the next investor to push them over the hump to actually buy these properties. And so, in my mind, that's why we need to be doing nothing that gives these guys any kind of inclination that they're going to get an approval or an email that says you can do it. So, I just want a little hope that the battle is still ongoing, and that when we say these things, this is what we could be dealing with unless we step up and press our leaders who actually get to vote. You know, it's a long time till 2027, so we need to press them to stand in the way. If they truly don't want it, like they say they don't, they need to stand in the way.
What is our plan to stop it? Do we have a plan?
Of course, there's always a plan. It's not always the right thing to do to announce it publicly, because there's people even in the back room back there that are on the other side and have an interest in all the data mining. Right, so I hate to say trust the plan because I got stuck with that one once. But trust the plan.
Sorry to close that question.
So, what we have an opportunity for questions, so we don't, because of the room size and the numbers, we want to fill out a card if you have a question. And if anybody has some type of revelation that they can show me what we got to do, put that on your card. I want to see it, because nobody except somebody's throwing out 40 million. Well, you know what? In my opinion, that 40 million is not worth the damage we're going to do to our community. Yeah, and you going to get on the record again?
What's that? No, well, I wanted, like Matt mentioned,
As far as property, Pacifico has a memorandum of contract with the landowners, and he's looking at to put his spot.
So Pacifico has a memorandum of contract with a couple of landowners where they were looking at going in. We have asked Mr. Hughes of Sailfish to produce his letters of intent, and he's refused to do that. Commissioner Eagle and Samuelson aren't here, but as you know, we had a hearing. We've been sued. Pacifico filed a suit against us. Project Red and Yellow, which is National CRE Holdings and Greenland Capital, filed suit against the county last Thursday. The Development Commission had asked for Project Red and Yellow to be put back on the agenda, which it was on yesterday's agenda. In response to that, that's why they filed suit, and they asked for a immediate temporary restraining order and injunction to prevent the commissioners from actually looking at that project again. And we had postponed those projects. Originally, Red and Yellow were looked at on March 4th. The developer agreed to an extension. They signed an agreement. We brought that back to the court on March 24th. Well, the problem was some of that information that came in from Red and Yellow had just been received the night before. So there wasn't any time for the commissioners to look at it. There wasn't any time to send it to outside counsel or engineers or anything for review. And so there was an agreement to postpone that. Well, it had been sitting out there for a little bit. So when we last met at the Development Commission, we decided that we need to get this back before the court. Because number one, we don't think they clearly identified who their developer is.
We actually recommended that they reject it.
And recommend a rejection. So this spurred the litigation. Well, what ended up happening in that hearing on Monday was they agreed to remove the temporary restraining order, their application for that. And the commissioners yesterday removed it from the consent agenda, so we did not look at that in court yesterday. That project was removed. What the Judge Buffkin has told Project Red and Yellow what they have to do is they have to file a motion for summary judgment. And I'm not an attorney, and this is my lay knowledge of it. But essentially what their argument is that project was evaluated under subdivision regulations, which is Local Government Code 232. Subdivision regulations. I think we can all agree that a data center is not a subdivision. You don't plat, anything like that. And And so in a way, this might turn out to be good because it's going to force the court to look at this issue. Does local government code 232 apply to these type of developments? As Commissioner Eagle said, this is essentially a case of first impression. So Judge Buckner told them Monday they had 7 days to get their motion for summary judgment on file. The county will have 21 days to file their response. And we'll see, and hopefully, due to the nature of this, it will get set for a hearing hopefully soon, within maybe 6 weeks or something. We don't know that for sure. But that's where we are on Project Red and Yellow. I do have on my county clerk page on Facebook, I created a public access folder. And so I've dropped the petitions in there, I dropped the TROs, anything on these projects, you can go to that public access folder and you can pull those up and read those. And so I know sometimes people going to our website can be a little tricky, so I've been trying to drop some things in there to keep, I'm all about transparency and having you all be in the know on that. But that's an update on Red and Yellow where we are right now on those.
It's complicated.
You got something?
So I'm tagging on to what Mr. Lowery said earlier, and that is, we're not trying to give you a reason to walk out of here with your heads held low, thinking there's no future. I think what I'd like to do is kind of characterize, I'm not going to tell you our strategy, but let me characterize the developers. This is not Amazon coming in here building a data center. So we don't have to say, we're resigned to it, they're going to do whatever they want. This is a market full of speculators that are racing to the finish line to be one of the first to get a permit to hopefully attract a tenant like Amazon. So it's a different situation. This is like a gold rush of people who aren't really the miners. And I'll give you some characterizations of these guys. One of the companies that put something before the commission, turns out that they write an affidavit that they're going to meet certain requirements of the state of Texas on a legal paper and have an attorney send the same, and the company doesn't exist. It's not legally an existing company in Texas or in Florida. Their parent company is a company with 3 women in a women-owned business that has an address at a wedding venue in St. Petersburg, Florida. Another one has 2 members of the board of directors that are citizens of Oman that have immense wealth and no staff, no engineering capability, never built a project in the United States. So we're dealing with a lot of stray dogs. You can maybe deduce how you would fight a battle with them.
Right before you get started.
Yeah, before you get started, you're talking about the gentleman that was texting you while you were speaking at the court. I think most people, anybody been contacted by Mr. Hughes? By text, look around the room. He is a company that wants to build in this county, but it's harassing citizens because they're speaking out. I got my first contact today. I'm shocked. He hadn't contacted. I got my first contact today. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say, and to get back to the issue of, this is not fear mongering at all. What this is an attempt to make all of you aware of what the issues are in regards to these data centers, so that you can pick up the phone, you can call our county commissioners, you can call our state legislators, you can call the governor's office, and you can tell them, with the governor, you tell him to call a special session. We need some help in regards to these data centers. With the county commissioners, you can call them, no matter what precinct that you live in, call our county commissioners and tell them to stand up and be courageous in this issue. We need some help. We need some courage. That's all it's going to take. There are other rural counties that are now passing that have no regulatory authority whatsoever, not anything like Subchapter K. But they are standing up and they are passing moratoriums they're adopting moratoriums, and effectively, I was at Van Zandt County when they passed their moratorium, and effectively, the county commissioners there in Van Zandt County said, sue us. Come on, just sue us. This week, Hill County, a small county that I have responsibility for, passed a moratorium. And I believe that, Steve, you were involved in drafting some of that language that their moratorium contained. But their moratorium is dedicated to a statement that says, the reason that we're adopting this moratorium for 1 year against all energy projects and data centers is because we know that these things will have an impact on the county infrastructure and the health and the safety and the well-being of our county citizens. So that's the type of approach we need to take. We need to come back to revisit the moratorium here in Hood County. Let's just go for it. That's my view.
I don't know if you're all conservative. I'm conservative. I'm a strong Republican. And people ask me, why are you against these when the president and the governor are so for them? I'm for Hood County. I'm for you all. And you know what they want to do outside of Hood County? Knock themselves out. I don't think you have to be across the board supporter of any candidate, of any elected official, when it doesn't make good, reasonable sense. I'll get back to you. I got a question. It's really, Greg kind of just hit on this. I spent 20 plus years in the active duty Army, most as a military intelligence officer. My family and I, etc., are still working we're exposed to PFAS, jet fuel, uranium, etc. We are still working to recover and detox from this exposure. And it goes on and it says, how can we help it? Let me first, I don't know who you are, you probably don't want to say it, but I want to recognize your service, because if you understand, you have served and sacrificed your well-being and family's well-being for the safety of this nation, and we can't get people in this county in leadership roles to stand up and defend you guys. That doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, thank you for your service.
It makes a little sense.
Has the county commissioners court done anything, approved resolutions or actions that violates law and should be appealed through the courts? We've kind of hit on that. Some of us believe that things were being approved at the division level, just approved. In fact, one email we saw, the answer went back to this company within 3 minutes. So we are concerned about that. The question is, do we have legal standing to be able to stop these projects? Because that division didn't have the authority to speak for the commissioners. That's still under discussion. But as far as the court, the commissioner's court, I've seen nothing where there's any illegality. There's accusations floating out there. I'm not saying any of that. For some reason, some of them just don't support us in this manner. And then one more, when new officers in office January 1st, 2027, will it be too late? The answer to that is, I don't think so. I think as this esteemed group here in Evans, the two commissioners, unfortunately, we're in for the long fight. It's what I call endeavor to persevere. Now, some of these people that go to these courts, Kurt, some of these I see around the room here, the numbers are starting to thin out. I mean, we were filling the court up and even in the hallway. And we need to keep coming. You need to let your voice be heard. Call them. Watch it online. We can't fall away from this. We're in the middle of a fight. We've got to stay strong.
Yes, we've got some that we want to target about Project Patriot, and then let's start with some of these, because we were in the city specifically for this. So let's start talking about it. let the panel.
Yeah, how can we rescind the extraordinary large tax abatements? Well, I'm not in the city. I've been paying attention. The city says they don't have a proposal. Therefore, they haven't offered tax abatements on Project Patriot. I know we haven't offered any tax abatements. My commissioners are not here, but I don't think, did Chip, you pass a resolution, no tax abatements?
Well, that is in the resolution, but,
That's in the resolution, but we still have to see if it comes to fruition, so.
So, I think, we're in a little bit of a pickle here, as Christine said. We got a 4-person court. We have a development director that's not able to come to work right now. If nothing else, now is time to pass a moratorium, and I think that's gonna be pushed forward again. Because our team isn't together. We don't have a full team. We're weak right now. So, I don't see, Mark, can tell you, I will pass an abatement. Go ahead.
The Hood County Commissioners did rescind a letter of support to Project Patriot, the project here tonight. If I understand, they also rescinded an offer to Amazon, is that right? Or it was never official? Okay, got it.
I will say this though, they've played both courts. They've gone back and forth with Somerville County Court and Hood County and played back and forth.
Individually.
Yes.
The commissioner.
Yeah, and I told them, I won't sign an NDA. I never have, I never will. I told them that I would not meet with them one-on-one. I said, if you guys want to meet with us, you meet with us as a court. We make decisions as a court, meet with us as a court, because they play us against each other.
Well, Christine and I were on a call with Ed and Amazon, and the lady who runs that division for them said she would bring her experts to answer questions, but only if we could have an unemotional conversation about it. And I told her, I said, I could see how it's very unemotional for you, but for the people of the county, it's highly emotional, and that would not be possible.
Well, on that note, 90% of the questions I asked, they said, oh, well, Chip, that's for the nerds. And I was like, oh, well, then bring the nerds. Because I want to know the answers to these questions. They make everything ambiguous. They're salespeople. Your first contact, the first people they send in to you, they're salespeople. They try to develop relationships. They try to get you to like them, and then they start trying to bamboozle you with their.
Yeah, they say this is not a regular data set. This is an Amazon data set.
Exactly. Our closed loop system is better than theirs. So.
And if we can ever get our hands on their nerd information and technical data, every experience that I've had where I've been able to get a hold of it, it fails.
Andy don't look like a nerd, but I guarantee he's right. Here's a tough question I want to ask. The city of Granbury has about 10,000 acre feet of water rights available. They use about 3,000 acre feet. Will the city be selling any water rights to Project Patriot? That's a city question. I can't answer that question for you. I can't answer it. You need to ask the city.
if we do, replace them.
Yeah.
Another question I don't know the answer to. Maybe somebody has seen the proposal that hasn't been proposed. Do we know if the Patriot project will have cooling towers, or closed loops?
Can I please speak to this?
You may.
Okay, so we found a concept plan in the public information request from the city that the city has apparently never seen. And what I did was this is it up here behind Greg. And what I simply did was, first of all, that information is not in there. But if you just take the square footage of all these boxes, it's about 40 million square feet of buildings in there. The total square footage, 40 million square feet of buildings. It's 43% lot coverage, which is 4.3 times bigger than anything that would be allowed in the county right now because of our 10% rule. It is over 4 gigawatts of power, and just for some perspective, there is not a power plant that exists in Texas big enough to produce 4 gigawatts of power. It also sits 160 feet elevation-wise higher than the elevation of the courthouse. So if we want to be a light on a hill, we certainly are going to be, with a nice little glow coming over Granbury there.
Mark, let me just tack on to that. So
What did he say?
it's really difficult to understand what we're dealing with in regards to Project Patriot because it's been very opaque in terms of the information that is made available. And that is typical, as Chip alluded to. A lot of these projects are coming into these counties and they're but they're asking the elected officials to sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, before they engage. And at that point, the battle is effectively lost. I've got to tell you that one of the things that we need to do in the legislative session is we need to have a law that prohibits an elected official from ever signing an NDA. I don't know how an elected official can represent we the people when they sign an NDA. So that's got to stop. But to get back to Project Patriot, in June of 2025, and I think this is really the first place that we can kind of trace the pedigree of the now called Project Patriot out here. And Project Patriot, a company called Bilateral Energy, and also I think Granbury Opco 1, something like that. They filed with the TCEQ for a permit to install 8 simple cycle gas turbines and 87 linear generators. That was back in June of 2025. Now, folks, as we sit here in this room today, Hood County is under an ozone warning. You fire up 8 turbines and 87 linear generators out there just west of us, and you ain't seen nothing yet. So the same TCEQ that has issued the warning about the air in Hood County and is telling you to ride a bicycle to work today and take your lunch so you don't go to a drive-through is allowing 8 simple cycle gas turbines and 87 linear generators, and they're approving it. So what's it going to be? I mean, these folks want to have their cake and eat it too. I mean, really, you can't make this stuff up. We've got to get a handle on it.
So what's TCEQ do is you get a plan in, they evaluate it for a singular plan, and looks like to us, they just rubber stamp it. They don't look at the corporate effect or the cumulative effect that it's doing to Hood County. We got Wolf Hollow 1, 2, and now we're putting 3 in. And as Greg pointed out, we've been out of range for some time. Tell me it's going to make anything better by putting these things in. That's the argument. If there's anybody who can meet me afterwards and tell me the cost of site cleaning, we don't know enough about it, but everything we do know about it is scary to me. Amy, this is a question for you.
Let me
Okay.
answer that or answer. So my first engagement was back on the Wolf Hollow 2 contested hearing at the convention center. It was the first time I ever got involved with anything in Granbury was in this industrial growth boom. And I sat there and watched the utility representatives and the TCEQ representatives basically with a straight face tell us that they were going to pass their permit and under the threshold of pollution levels because they promised we're never going to operate the plant more than 40% of its capacity. Anybody own a Corvette? Tell your son, You can take it out, but don't drive it over 35 miles an hour. Who are they fooling? So, yeah, that's a.
What's it operating at?
How do we know? It's self-reporting. DCEQ has no enforcement. They do no inspections, and it's an annual reporting. No.
Andy, maybe you had an answer. What could be the fire hazards with Project Patriot?
I wish I knew what Project Patriot composed of, but let's just talk about what a general project would have involved in it. They've got data halls, which are the buildings I talked about before. They house all the computer servers. Then they have a power plant or a power generation source. They take it from the grid. They're building new gas turbines or combined cycle plants. And then they also will need some sort of a way to handle transient downtime, which will mean either backup diesel generators or battery electric storage systems. Of that list, we have to think about the risks being either continuous and guaranteed. Emissions are always there. We know how much is going to be emitted when we burn natural gas. So that's an impact we can calculate. And then there are risks where we put something on a plant site that's hazardous, and if there's an accident, then the consequences are very dire. So I've been digging into these battery electric storage systems, and that's one of the things that scares me the most, because I'm beginning to see the type of hazards associated with thermal runaway and fires, possible explosions, and definitely toxic gas releases.
And how does a volunteer fire department in Granbury handle something that's not?
The first step is knowing what the hazard is, and that is not the case with the county fire department right now.
We'll do what they did in California, we'll let it burn.
Yeah.
And guess who's gonna be soaking up all those toxins from the batteries? We are. We'll be filtering it through our homes. Because, I mean, we have an average Somerville County, you know, everyone assists everyone, you know, weekly, right? We have a mutual aid agreement with everybody. And so we have 4 to 6 people total on staff at Somerville County. That's our shifts. So, you know, we have how many millions of square feet burning? We call in all 4 of them, you know? So, I mean, that was one of the problems I had with AWS, with like impact fees, and I was like, they're like, oh, that'll be another contract. I was like, well, this contract needs to reference that contract, or it doesn't exist, right? And so how are you guys gonna help us protect you when you get it? Oh, it's another contract. You know, because they're salespeople. So, yeah, we're gonna have problems. And we're talking about one that has been approved right now between the 2 counties. What happens when there's 2 approved? So we have to do every single thing we can possibly do to keep that from happening.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the hazmat response for Granbury comes out of Fort Worth. And if you're putting the power plants, well, like I said earlier, within a mile and a half of high school, 4,000 children. Within a mile of at least one other elementary school and in the hospital, you have significant problems, and we don't have the resources in place right now to handle those problems.
There's currently a BESS facility under construction near Pecan that's only about 200 feet from the daycare center.
So, I told you earlier about the moratorium that was adopted by Hill County, and one of their whereas statements that provides the support to allow them to stop these types of issues. It says, whereas Hill County, if you could use Hood or Somerville, Hill County's rural emergencies response system, including volunteer fire departments and emergency medical services, presently maintains limited staffing, specialized suppression equipment, hazardous materials capability, and water supply infrastructure necessary to respond to lithium-ion battery incidents, industrial fires, or large-scale infrastructure emergencies. So they're listing out there that they know that they have that exposure, and so until they deal with that exposure, they're saying no more.
I have a copy of the annexation ordinance that went in for the Knox Ranch property. and I'll just read from here, Police Protection and Fire Protection Services. The City Council of the City of Granbury, Texas finds and determines it to be unnecessary to acquire or construct any capital improvements for the purpose of providing police protection or fire protection service. The City Council finds and determines that it has at the present time adequate facilities to provide the same type, kind, and level of protection and service which is presently being administered. So,
And I don't believe that document was available at the time of the initial hearing, correct? That was added after.
This was filed January 7th, so exactly.
It was added after. It wasn't up for discussion, ahead of time. It was one of the issues that we brought up at our.
Let me say this again about the county. With Christine Lefkowich's leadership, Matt Long, and I see Gary Davis, like Walter, he keeps moving around the room. He's now your new Development Commission representative for Precinct 1. They're doing a stellar job at trying to protect you all. They're putting these regulations together quickly. They've had a lot of special meetings. You're more than welcome to go. We have an advisory council. Andy sits on that. I think Kirk Teskey is he on your advisory council. A lot of smart people are sitting on that keep coming in and providing. They're doing a great job. The race isn't over. We're in it. They rolled up their sleeves. We're going to fight. We're going to continue to fight. I want to go back to something earlier. I want to make sure you're clear about transparency and truthfulness. I won't be signing NDAs either. I've signed NDAs with clients of mine that had specific information that could be harmful to their families as a consultant. But I don't see, as Greg Harrell pointed out, any government official that should sign an NDA. If someone wants to do business with us, bring it, but we got to let the people know what's going on. Steve, you want to add anything on that lawsuit, or you want to just
That's enough for the moment. I mean, maybe I might have to.
Here's one for you guys. Can you please explain the outcome and vote from yesterday's County Commissioner Rain Lily invest on the river?
You want to take that on? I wish one of our commissioners, because we sat with them, they went into executive session for probably about maybe 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Who said yes? Jim back there. And it goes, okay, yeah. I'm going to add something, even though you're going to jump in. That was a sensitive issue, and it's been ongoing for a while. It's been in the works for 4 years. And I believe, I can't speak for the commissioner specifically, but I believe they felt that we had a lot of exposure if we shut it down at this point. I compared it, we're in the middle of a war here. That wasn't our Gettysburg. This was, in my opinion, it was a skirmish. Now, a lot of people may not like it. I wish we could have stopped it myself, but this is a long, protracted war we're in, and that was just, in my opinion, a skirmish. So the Rain Lily is go ahead, Christina.
Rain Lily is a solar farm that's going in the Abbey Bend area. And as Mark Lowery alluded to, now I wasn't in the executive session for the 2 hours, but a little bit before they went into that long session. But like he said, a couple of the commissioners, one was very concerned about the exposure, because while this project came into the county back in like 2022, and it had kind of stalled, and then it changed names, and then somebody else, bought the property and acquired the project, things like that. But there have been representations made, one of them being an email, which you all can read on my public access folder, but apparently there was also a letter that basically gave carte blanche. We can't regulate unincorporated areas in Hood County. You don't need a permit. You're not in a floodplain. We don't need anything from you. And so legally, this person was essentially an agent of the county. And we just felt like that was a legal battle we were not gonna win. Now, Commissioner Samuelson and I met with the Wrangler people because in the court on March 24th, Commissioner Samuelson pointed out that Wrangler all along had been asserting that they had been good neighbors. We want to be good neighbors to Hood County. We want to do the right thing. And so she said, okay, well, provide your concept plan. Show us what you got. And so we went and met with them, and they gave us kind of a look at what they were going to submit. And then they changed their mind. And they decided that, well, we've got this email from way back when in 2023, and we've got this letter. And yeah, no, we're not doing it. We're not going to submit this plan. Well, what ended up happening, and this Wrangler agreement that was read into the record yesterday, it's also in my public access folder, so you can go and you can read it. But they came up with this agreement that they would submit their concept plan, their informal concept plan, and basically that we can't challenge anything on that. So we're gonna let their project go forward. They're gonna submit their informal concept plan, and that's where we are. They agreed to do a $50,000 road bond for damages and things like that. They're going to provide a comprehensive drainage study, a construction plan. One of the concerns with the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act is, and parts coming from China, National Fire Protection Act of 855. So they're supposed to have water on site to be able to put out a fire, different things. So they have agreed to some things for the county here, and the county has given them some concessions as well. So again, this is in my public access folder. If you want to read that agreement, it was read verbatim into the record yesterday in the court.
What I would add is that, in my opinion, the reason why they didn't want to submit a concept plan is because they would essentially reset everything they felt they had been working on for about 4 years, and that's also a misnomer too, because there has been no Rain Lily for 4 years. There was like Yellow Viking and 1 and 2, and in my experience in real estate, when a project name changes, it means that it's started over. It means you've got new investors. It means there's new partners. It means you've totally changed something about the project. Maybe you're rebranding it because it didn't work the first time, and you can't sell the same thing to the same people. So I personally don't think it's fair for them to say they've been here for 4 years working with the county when they haven't submitted anything. And if they had submitted their concept plan, I believe that we could have held them to the 10% rule, which is why they kind of decided, oh, you know what, I don't think we should do this. And in my opinion, the court -1 made it easy for them. And I just talked about how we need to not be making things easier for these folks. They could have at least made them write a strongly worded letter, and let's go to Buffkin's court again, and take a little bit more time. But the point is, like you talked about, there's components in all of these things that nobody is comfortable with, and I'm tired of seeing things made easier for people.
I do want to point out, this was a 3-1 vote, okay? It passed 3-1. Commissioner Samuelson said no to this.
So when they talk about the road bond and damage to the roads, one of the things that concerns me, I don't think anybody is actually talking about, is at one point in time, if there is damage to the roads, after the trucks have driven up and down the road, 7,000 people are driving up and down that aren't from here. At some point in time, there's going to have to be a split, and they're going to say, you owe us for these roads, right? How are they going to apportion the damages? And at what point in time are they going to accept 100% of the damages to the road? Are they going to say, no, this is normal wear and tear, this is over here from these heavy trucks? How are you going to apportion it? And you're going to wind up back in court. discussing something that they can take if they do it head on, that'd be one thing. But if you make them pay up front, or you set a percentage up front, or you say you owe 100% of the roads after you're done with your construction, I don't think they would be as excited to come in here, right? But at the end of the day, who's gonna ultimately owe the repair of the roads? It's gonna fall back on the taxpayers, the people of Hood County. That's where it's gonna fall. And then we're gonna have to hire somebody to go battle in this court if that be the case.
Yeah, 100% is gonna be the taxpayers, because they, get the permits from the state, and like 90% of everything that goes on in the county permit-wise, it all goes to the state of Texas, and we keep very little of it here, if any.
And their position will be prove it was us that did the damage. Right. Show us that we did the damage. That's what you're gonna hear, that's what you're gonna end up seeing.
Why we bring attorneys. Greg, this question here is, what did the police say about the crime in Abilene? Let me just, I wanted to follow up when you first said it. I don't know how many of you driven to Lipan recently, but my wife and I was knocking on doors out there. And we stopped to talk to a gentleman, and just a couple of days before, a big truck pulled in and tried to sell him some gravel. He didn't want the gravel, so I don't want the gravel. The guy backed up next to his driveway and dumped the load and just kept going. And that's the example. Now, I don't know what's going on over there, maybe that bridge, I don't know. But since I've been going back to Lipan, on the other side of his house, there's like 5 or 6 loads of gravel dumped on the side of the road. They get paid by the load, so they don't care if he gets to the job site or not. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's what they were saying. So these drivers would just drop the loads and keep going. I don't know if the cops were able to lock anybody up on that or not.
Well, so one of the things that the sheriff told us over in Taylor County is they ran a sting operation to look at the trucks that were delivering building materials, aggregates to the site, and they had to shut down the sting operation, I think about halfway through, because they found so many trucks that were not capable of being on the road that were trying to work there. And of course, they found a significant number of drivers that had no documentation whatsoever. So, but as far as the crime goes, because I did ask the question of the sheriff since he was there, he gave me what I consider a surprising answer, and that is that they didn't really have any, they didn't seem like they, or felt like they had any increased crime as a result of the guys that were working at the site. And I think that's because the guys that are working at the site are working so hard and such long hours that all they want to do is go to work and go home, and it's not like a roughneck type situation. It's a lot more calm in terms of the crime. But the trucks that are operating on the road, that have bald tires, that are broken frames, all of those things that actually do pose a threat to the public itself, they are out there and they're trying to get them off. So.
One of the questions, a common argument online is that people are against data centers. Why are they posting online using a data center? I can't, and it goes on, can one of you differentiate between a traditional enterprise data center handling e-commerce, social media, everyday digital traffic, and then the hyperscale data centers? Somebody want to take that?
I will say this, because I've got the answer. If they promise not to build a data center in Hood County, I'm going to get off Facebook right away. I'll be done.
And the 90s were great.
Yeah.
Go back to the 90s.
Mark, we have the capability right now to do all those things that were on the first part of that question without the new builds of the hyperscalers. Hyperscale data centers are not for managing data like you're talking about. They're for training AI algorithms. It's a huge difference. They need immensely larger amount of power and memory and capabilities.
And space.
Space.
So, Greg, I think you shared an article, and who knows, I believe it was true, one of the major car rental companies was using AI. Were you rental cars was using AI, and all their files got deleted, all of them. And they asked AI, well, why did you do that? And he used a human term. I
Can't use it here.
can't use it in public. That's an AI that did that. Yeah, we messed up. Who or what court gives the county the authority to enforce regulations and stop a data center? So the commissioner's court can make a determination, can rule and say, we're not gonna do data centers, go against them. We could then be sued, and it could end up in our district court, and if that answer isn't favorable to either parties, it could end up eventually at the state Supreme Court. Anybody, I got a lawyer, why'd I answer that?
Yeah, I know you're right, you know that.
The only thing I would add is I believe we're in the issues, we are in the situation we're in because we didn't say no from the beginning. If we had just said no from the beginning, there would be no misleading things that makes it look like the county is not acting in good faith. If we had said no from the beginning, which I believe we had the right to because of subchapter K, because of our districts, like Kirk Teskey was talking about, does this project enhance the quality of life for residents? No. Okay, rejected. Does this project encourage recreation, which is what the Water Quality District says? No. Okay, rejected. And in my opinion, every single one of those projects had at least one issue that the development director could have said rejected and had not even gone to commissioner's court, which is how it should have been handled. Obviously, it's very easy to look back and say that now, but that is the major issue, in my opinion, that we have allowed and are continuing to allow these things to like inch forward, and then it's a stop.
This card had a question about the solar farm, but it also mentioned Fort Spunky, which is Pacifico. And let me just kind of, again, Pacifico has filed a suit against the county. I guess it's probably been about a month ago, maybe a little less than that. But let me kind of explain what happened on that one. Originally, the Commissioner's Court had given them a conditional approval. But what happened, and they went to AMUD. They went to AMUD to ask for water, and AMUD turned it down. And so one of the requirements in our regulations is that you have to be hooked up to a centralized water source, I think is what it says exactly. And they didn't have water. We brought it back to court. You don't have water. We know AMUD turned you down. We know you haven't applied to the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District for those land wells that are on there. And so when we brought it back to court, and Commissioner Samuelson made the motion to deny it, essentially, remove that conditional approval for lack of having a water source. And so they got turned around and sued. In their petition, they say they're going to go back to AMUD, so I don't know if they have yet or not, but anyway, that's where we are on that. We felt very strongly on that the court felt very strongly that they had the grounds to deny and reject that project based on them not having water.
Ken, Peter, you sneak out of the house here. One of the things is comment on he asked about the 765 kVA transmission line. I don't know if Ken just handed this, he may have snuck out, but these, anybody can speak on those specifically. They're the power lines.
I know about them. What are they?
You're the one that's got, you're the one who showed me the chart.
Well, I mean, just a quick update of where everything is. Public Utility Commission, they basically are talking that their preferred line is 713, which, it all starts in Somerville County, the dyno switch, and goes north. 713 goes by Toller, and it's the furthest route north. That's what the PUC engineers say that's their preferred line. Encore, however, has a different route. So they're saying 552, which also goes north out of Somerville County and goes on the north side of the Biloxi Valley. So the hearings have still been going on. I was called to testify about A3, which wraps around Dinosaur Valley State Park, but they waived my testimony, and they waived a lot of other people's testimony along that route, which leads me to believe it's coming north.
When you say it's coming north, is that the one that's gonna follow 51?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's one that comes, it leaves Somerville, and it goes abuts 51, and then at some point in time it drops south, correct? Or is it the one that's gonna go completely into the town?
Well, there's one that well, there's two. Yeah, there's two. In Encore and Puck have not come to agreement on their preferred lines. They each have different preferences. So the bottom line is the Public Utility Commission is the one that has the final say so.
But two of those routes come through Granbury, correct? At least two of those.
Hood County,
Yeah, Wood County.
yes.
Hood County. And if I understand correctly, this is a meeting I was out a month or so ago, those lines haven't been tested on their capability and their.
These lines are just what I call part of the invasion that we're going through with the solar and the Encore, Encore is part of the switch over by Lydian Energy on the Somerville County side. The solar panels is ran by Lydian, and the Encore switch is on the Somerville County side, and so that's heading out east. So, but the 765 kilovolt, those are all heading towards the Permian Basin.
And I've seen some stuff recently, the Permian Basin fighting it also, correct?
Everyone's fighting it. I mean, this is ruining our countryside from here to the Permian Basin, and I mean all types of historic monuments and airports, and I heard pages of testimony of people just like us of these things ruining our lives. And there are several state representatives that are meeting with Encore as well to talk about this, because they're saying we're way early on these lines. We don't even have anything to power them.
So who has a map showing all the data centers and BSS? Direct them, my friend.
Yeah, if you go to rejectbigtech.com, I had one that was on that made in PowerPoint, and then it's got a little better. And now I'm trying to make it kind of more of an interactive map based on Google Maps, where you can hover over sites and see everything. Currently, I think I just have the data centers up, but if you go to my Facebook page, you can see the old map that had all the data centers, all the power plants, Mara's existing facility, and then, of course, Apache Hill and the other spots like that. So check out my Facebook at DataBad, or go to rejectbigtech.com.
This is an interesting question. I don't know who asked it. This is interesting. What regulations are being given to the data center owners to design, build, and operate a data center in Wood County? In other words, I guess the question, if I may, is, are we giving them the playbook on how to prepare themselves to come in and make a proposal? And these would not be hidden. They're going to be online. The regulations are online, so they can go and look at them. Yeah, good question.
It was a trick question.
Yeah, I got it.
There are thousands of regulations that affect everything in our lives. Federal, state, and some local ones, land use, drilling the wells, so on. But there are zero regulations on how an owner, the requirements an owner has to design, build, and operate a data center. The state has issued one in May of 2025, very weak, it covered a little bit of energy usage, but it did not address what are these, and they basically pushed it down to the communities. If you read the sub-notes, it says it's a community responsibility. So therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem. If we don't stand up and say, these are the minimum requirements for you to covering traffic control, covering housing for people, so on and so forth, you're going to get what they're going to give. Because there's no regulation governing those things. So how is it typically done? I've got a brother doing this in Alabama. He's got the community together, they put a panel together, and they're writing the requirements. Somebody has to stand up and start writing requirements that forces these companies, which one? They will probably walk away, by the way, if you write these away to communities. It's probably something you're going to find acceptable.
So, our regulations have been enhanced, and I don't want to point out any one county employee or commissioner. We all got blindsided on this. They come around our flanks and hit us hard. Maybe we could have been a little bit more timely to respond once we saw we were under assault. I think we're doing a good job through the regulations. 10% coverage, I think that's huge. Would you not agree? Problem is we got a stalemate on the court. And right now we have 4 commissioners and we have 2 that don't see anything wrong with these things. Or they're afraid we're going to get sued.
Mark, let me just add a little bit of a response there. As I said earlier, Texas is unique in terms of what capabilities, what powers it grants to the counties. And so in Texas, the Texas Constitution does not allow the county to have the type of authority that you're discussing. Almost every other state in the union, the county can regulate in rural areas. Texas is not like that. So when these data center operators or these data center developers saw Texas wide open the way we are, we're wide open. They came, as a matter of fact, the sailfishinvestors.com website, it lists right on there, and I hate this term, but it says they have access to 13, and Hood County's one of them, but this is the term they use, curated counties. Like we're a wine or a cigar. Hood County is a curated county in the eyes of data center developers.
Well, and that's why.
So it's a game. It really is a game. So the game is that you write the requirements and say these are requirements for Hood County. They don't necessarily have to go in the law, but these are the requirements. Let them go ahead and challenge them. You're all going to hear them say, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't. Maybe by then the state will finally address what really needs to be done.
Well, I think that it's a systematic silence from the state, 100%. And because this is an unprecedented situation, it's my opinion that we can use unprecedented measures to stop it, which again is why I was disappointed that we didn't get the moratorium. But Hood County has taken the steps of altering our regulations because we have that ability through subchapter K. The 10% lot coverage is very effective because it used to be 50% and they didn't even count parking and paving against that 50%. It's now 10% and includes parking and paving, so the building coverage is actually like 6, 7, 8%. So it's very drastic. We don't have the ability to regulate things that a zoning commission of a city would, but we have developed a very strong list, item number 21 in our checklist, for things that these people have to comply with, whether it be decommissioning, whether it be conformity with the Lone Star Infrastructure and Protection Act, and things of that nature. So that process has started and is continuing through the Development Commission, and our advisory board, which kind of right now is just informally the people that come to our meetings every time. Because that is a very open and transparent meeting where pretty much everybody gets to say anything they want. And we do meet in the evening also. So 6 p.m. on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and we've lately been meeting at the St. Louis Commissioner's Court takes place.
So, you're Mark Bailey?
Yeah.
I would encourage you to come to, anybody wants to come to the Development Commission meeting. It's open and they have open dialogue. It's very refreshing. They can actually have conversation back and forth. And they listen to smart people, which is also refreshing. Andy, here's one specifically addressed to you. Andy, can you please help us understand the GW power output of the power plants in terms of the number of houses a plant could provide power for?
That's a variable number, you can get a lot of numbers on the internet, but.
You get a lot of different numbers off the internet. I guess I'm gonna make a guess, it's around 100,000 for a gigawatt plant. But it has to do with efficiencies and transmission and things like that. But maybe another way to look at this is we're hosting power generation that is about a 20 to 40 multiplier on what we consume in our area. And so there's not a whole lot of industries that have developed from scratch where the specific location that all the hard assets go in it is highly densified, and then the beneficiaries are.
And something I think we need to add is once they build these things, then the workers go away, and I've heard anywhere from 20, maybe 50 workers. I think 50 is a high number. I think it's 20 or less. Again, we don't have all specificity to be able to determine exactly what we're looking at here. Again, my position is we don't know enough about all of this long-term environmentally, what value they bring to our county, so therefore I'm against it. And you can make an argument more specifically for yourself if you want. If you want it, that's your choice also. Was there another question there? Have we considered, along with the hotels being filled, where all the trucks and equipment will be housed, noise potential for crime? I have 20 years of trucking and transportation and heavy equipment. You know, I think we've maybe addressed that a little bit out of the experience out of Abilene. They may come in and put these man camps like they do out of the oil fields. I don't know specifically. But again, I'm gonna go back and reiterate what I said before. We are a tourist community. Families come here to go to the lake, to walk and enjoy the beauty, which I think is the beginning of hill country. They go down to the square, and when we break this down, this flow of tourists, because of the road construction for data centers and the road construction for actually 377, my fear is we're going to start separating the tourist people that's coming here, and once they leave and go somewhere else, I think the experience shows it's hard to get them back. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to add is that part of the new checklist is a traffic impact analysis as well as like a lodging logistical plan. And theoretically, if a project even gets to the point where they're submitting these things, theoretically those are things that the development department and the commissioner's court has an opportunity to object to. So that's why we've added it to the checklist for those projects. Now, the current projects are going to say that those things aren't applicable to us. So that's another battle we are fighting, except to my point earlier, because these things are unprecedented, I think, and they don't even fit into our regulations, we can bring in outside things to help be responsible if these things were to continue forward.
And just kind of piggybacking off of the traffic impact analysis, going back to Project Red and Yellow, one of the things that they did is they submitted the traffic impact analysis, but it was like after construction. And Commissioner Samuelson, she said, no, we need to see what it's going to be like during construction. Well, so we got this traffic impact analysis just within like the last week or two. And what they proposed in their construction was that they were going to build one building a year, and it was gonna take them 12 to 14 years to complete. I think we can all agree that is so unrealistic. 12, I mean, we're Denison, we don't even know where they're gonna be in 12 years. But she really took issue with that that's just completely unrealistic to think that you're just gonna build one little building a year for your projects. So obviously they were trying to make the, I guess the construction traffic not look as bad as we know.
The thing that troubles me most is the potential to do damage to our watershed and the aquifers. And I brought something up in front of a couple of developers in attendance, but this is new to me. But I'm sure all of you here, you have heard about pledges for carbon neutrality. Companies are trying to do the best to be carbon neutral. It doesn't seem to be the buzzword now, but it certainly was for a long period of time. Well, there's another one now. It's called net positive water. Net positive water has been committed to by AWS, Microsoft, Google, the top 15 mega data companies. However, the dirty little secret is these building developers and data center developers are not being held to that. And so I think that's an avenue that we have, that we can start expressing. Aren't you making these commitments? Are they real? Are we going to start seeing action? Billions and billions of dollars were spent on the carbon neutral agenda item by these big companies. And water is definitely a resource that ought to be treated just as importantly as our atmosphere.
Part of the water neutral campaign is they're going to be water neutral. One of their strategies is to come into the community and teach all of us how to conserve our water.
Yeah.
So that they'll eventually get water neutral.
Yeah. One of the points that they've done as well is they're talking about recharging an aquifer. Recharging an aquifer is not as simple as pouring water back into a drain. It's far more complicated to attempt to recharge an aquifer. And then you have to take into consideration what about potential contamination. And then if there's cross-contamination of an aquifer, and where does that water plume go, and who is it directly affecting, and is anybody taking into consideration once there's contamination of the water plume? Are they mandating that they are going to continue with testing so that people are aware of where that water is flowing in the underground aquifer? That's something that I don't think anybody's even spoke to yet when they're talking about this potential of recharging an aquifer.
Another question, how can we successfully navigate our 2-year legislation schedule to achieve results? Greg, I don't know if I think we kind of hit on that, but you go ahead and address it.
So the Republican Party will convene into the state convention here in early June, and one of the things that I know that will be an issue because it's pouring in from all over, most all of the counties here in the state of Texas we will pick up a legislative priority to deal with data center issues, data center regulation. And once we set that as a legislative priority, the party typically sets about 8 legislative priorities. Those become key measures that we engage with in regards to our state legislators. I've got to tell you though that there are some very high-level state officials that have invited these data centers into the state of Texas, and I'll just leave it at that because I have to be a Republican. But there are high-level officials that have invited these data centers in, so there's going to be a big battle during the conduct of the 90th legislative session to see whether or not we can give these counties some authority to regulate these I'll call them monstrosities. But by then, we're talking about the legislature convenes in January of 2027. It runs for 140 days. By the time the governor signs a bill into law, maybe we're in September of 2027. So I continue to hold out hope that a lot of these rural counties that are facing these onslaughts will go ahead and adopt moratoriums, and let's get some case law behind us and figure out, really what power do we have, especially surrounding an approach where we say, hey, these data centers have the ability to impact, to threaten the safety of the citizens of Somerville County, Hood County, Hill County, and they have a definitive impact, and that does fall under the purview of the county commissioners. So.
You got a question for me?
No, this is for me.
I need a question.
All right.
I'm trying to see if it's. So this was an excellent defense. How about our offense? Effort, city and county pre-buys our electricity and H2O for constituents. Anybody want to take that on? So the city does buy water for its citizens. Honestly, I don't know if the county does or not buy water. Pre-buys water. Chips in.
Well, we have nothing to do with water. So, we don't have the three things you need. We don't have the energy, we don't have the water, and we don't have the land. That's not what we do as counties. And so if they have to have those three things, so one of our saving graces might be Prayer Lands and Upper Trinity, right? So with the regulations that they put on. But, I think our court has finally come around to definitively saying no groundwater. Even though AWS's contract said that they can use any water rights that Vistra has, which would include groundwater, right? And I said, well, that's not what we agreed to. Well, that's the contract that was signed. So, who knows? There's still lots of questions. Way more questions than answers. So.
Judge, real quickly, the reason why I asked that question is these facilities are pre-buying their electricity. Why can't our politicians, for the constituents, pre-buy 10 years out, just like they're doing, lock in our electricity costs, lock in our supply, which is the most important part. If they can buy 50% of Comanche wheat, it's a supply issue, not just a cost. So in the deepest part of summer, the supply's not there, our costs will go up, and we don't have any benefit. So as a community, as our politicians, as elected officials, why can't counties, states, and cities pre-buy our electricity for 10 years out like we're doing and lock it in? That's an offense, that's an on-off measure.
The states can, we don't have the budget for it. So we don't have the money.
A bond issue, that's a bond I would support. That would pay for itself.
Yeah, it's going to be a budget issue. Good. I mean, we would need to see the numbers and what that looks like. Bonds are not a big item here in Hood County. I think we were bonded out for a while. That doesn't sound right, but Andy, you brought this net positive on water question. So explain net positive water until utilization achieved through purchase offsets from others who are using less than their share of water consumption. These facilities don't actually produce water. You want to explain? I think they're asking about the net.
Yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs, but it's definitely the opinion of the experts that this will become a marketplace, like the carbon marketplace was. And so we're going to see things traded and bought and sold. But the theory behind this net positive water is that you can actually generate water. There are ways to do it. Essentially you're going to be using discharged wastewater that would have been thrown away as cooling water, things like that, and recovering rainwater and things like that. It's just, there's a host of different options that are all being considered one at a time for different projects.
So I'm gonna go back to my position. That's all sounds good. Are we ready to do that? That's the question. I don't think we're ready to accept this product with the potential of maybe making net water down at the end. Now, I have heard the fracking is now taking the water and selling it. I don't remember now what particular industries buying the fracking water. You can't put anything past American ingenuity. I just don't think we're ready in Hood County for this at this time. And I am for some industrial growth, moderate industrial growth for jobs, as I said earlier in the evening. I just don't see me coming off this earlier question I had before you all ride. Are you pretty set in your decision? I am. I've been watching this for some time. I get a lot of information sent to me. I talk to a lot of these people here at the table. I listen to them speak. I'm not convinced this is the way Hood County needs to go. And I don't see me coming off that because I've yet to have anybody come up and sit down with me and show me the positive side of this. So anybody want to follow up here, Christine? Any of us have any follow up? We're overtime, which is fine with me. Very good. And listen, I appreciate you all staying around. Number one, I appreciate you coming. And two, we want to continue to do these because I think it's important for you all to hear information from the people that are in the middle of this fight and can give you factual information versus looking what's on Facebook and stuff. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, you know, we have had a lot of citizen input in Commissioners Court, and I love to see people show up, and I know it's hard because it's during the day. We have a lot of people who are citizens who are spending an enormous amount of time researching issues. We're trying to think of any angle to approach this from. The Project Patriot is encroaching upon the Granbury Airport. So someone has done a lot of research to see what can we do from the FAA angle. We've got people who have, I know, Craig did an enormous amount of research from an endangered species perspective. We have a lot of experts and people in the county that are doing this research, and it's so appreciated because anyone knows when you do research and you get down a rabbit hole and you look up and 6 hours have gone by. So I appreciate it. They're sending it to the commissioners, they're sending it to me, and so we're not giving up the fight. And I know, even I'm like, oh my gosh, are we ever going to make some headway on this? But we're looking at every possible angle. So please don't give up. Please keep voicing your concerns. If you stumble upon something and you think it might be another avenue that we can use to fight this, just let your voice be heard and get that information to us.
So I don't, Mike's back there, and I think Donna's back over in the corner. They came up with some FAA stuff and some information today that may be helpful. I just saw the email about an hour before this, so we have to be able to look into it. But that hits to what Christine said. As you do your research and you come up with information, share it with the commissioner, share it with Christine or Matt or some of the others on the development, come to the development commission. So I guess this is good. Where do we go from here? Fighting data centers, AI, and their attached gas plants. I think you pull out every instrument we have in our tool belt. Or in my world, pull out all your ammo, and we've just got to come up with more and more creative ways. At the end of the day, I want to say this: we've got to give a commissioner, I don't care which one, on our court to find the courage to support the citizens of Hood County. That's why they were elected. This is very clear in my mind. The citizens of Hood County does not want this. And I would just want the commissioners that are voting against the moratorium, voting against some of this, they need to find the courage to step up and say, you know what, I represent you. And I may not quite agree with all of this as far as the fear of dangerous sinners. I hate to use that word, but I'm going to vote for my constituents. I'm going to vote for the citizens of Hood County. And Unless Greg got something, I think I want to close,
Well, I just got a text message, and so to support the lawsuit that is taking place in regards to the Project Patriot out here, you can go to Protect Hometown Granbury on, is that Facebook? Facebook, Protect Hometown Granbury, sign a petition, get involved there. That's going to be what I think is a bellwether fight, and so we should probably get engaged there. That would be applicable to the city, and just stay really informed with what's going on here. You are leaving here tonight I hope much better informed than you were when you came in, but this is a quickly moving environment that we're dealing with yet, and so I just encourage you to get engaged, read up, do your research. If you come up with something that's innovative, let one of us know. Hey, we'll use anything we can use right now.
Just real quick, Kirk, could you give the Protective Biloxi credentials? Because these guys have helped me daily. So can you let them know how to contact you?
I would encourage everyone to go to protectbiloxi.com. It's a 501c3 organization. We do need donations to continue the fight. We have legal attorneys that are helping us with some of the fight for all of the data centers throughout the county. So, yeah, Protect Biloxi, and then they've got a big Facebook page as well.
yeah, as I said earlier, this isn't a city fight. This isn't a Somerville fight. This isn't a, Joshua. This literally is all of our fight in Texas. And I feel sorry for the counties that are not paying attention and letting them come in. We're going to fight. We're going to pry the gun out of my cold, dead hand, as we say.
Hey, you guys, so here we are sitting in the city, and the question is, where do we go from here? And so there's another organization, it's called grassroots.org, and they actually do have these don't data center my Hood County. So we'll have those out front when you guys leave. There are some buttons up there that we want to spread the word, but on there, where do we go from here? They've got 2 initiatives. And one of the initiatives is to enhance data center standards to improve city oversight and project adjacent land use. And so if we could actually get 1,500 people in the city to say that they're interested in that, city voters in city limits. I know it affects all this, but we're talking about city homeowners and those who actually vote here. That's one of them, and we can present that to the city council. Now, if they don't adopt it into their charter, then if we get the right 1,500 people in the city, then it becomes a referendum on the November ballot. So there are 2 initiatives for the city. The second one is giving voters a voice in city economic incentives for development over $40 million. So why don't we know about these things, So we're looking for a little more transparency. These are real initiatives. GranburyGrassroots.org. They've got 2 petitions on there. They also have a couple of others that have no confidence, and if you guys are inclined to do it, they're out block walking every single day. I live in the city, and so on West Left, there were volunteers that were there, but we need a city person to actually see and are able to say that these are actually city voters that are doing it. So you have to have a city person with every county volunteer. We've got more than 30. And you might have seen their t-shirts. They've come on, and they're knocking on doors in the city because it means something to those in the county. So what can we do? You guys go to GranburyGrassroots.org and make a difference. Let your voice be heard. We wanted to send a message to the city. Obviously, they're not able to speak. We did ask Mayor Jarrett if he could be here tonight, and they're being sued, and they signed DNAs, so they can't. As much as we are here in this facility, it's because he helped us get here. And I don't know if you guys know that, so I do want to give a little credit to him, and there's hope there. So, you know, he was a fan of all of his constituents. There's hope. And so don't give up on them. Maybe they just need a little more knowledge. I don't know what the answer is, but GranburyGrassroots.org, go let your voice be heard. And then there is a fishbowl up front to help pay for some of the signage and for legal fees that he's actually, I don't know if he said that.
He said legal fees, but somebody else has a fund started as well.
Right. And so I didn't know if you wanted to say that you were doing it for the
Yes, so.
Yeah.
The case that I filed against the city, on behalf of a number of the constituents regarding the annexation of Knox Ranch, my law firm is doing it pro bono for that aspect. However, we have retained other attorneys to also help us out with work as well. So we're funding that as well. So if anybody wants to donate, it won't go directly to me because I'm going to fight with you guys. I'm in the same boat that everybody else in here. But the attorneys that we are hiring on the outside, we're paying them directly. So any little bit can help because, as you guys know, attorneys are expensive, but we'll keep the fight going as long as we possibly can. Actually, until we win, right? Until we win.
I guess that's it. I guess this is the end of this town hall. The message we had tonight is quality of life, and I think we can all agree that we want to maintain the quality of life in Hood County and beyond that impacts us. When you leave here, tell them that's what we talked about tonight: quality of life, the problems we're having, and how we are going to continue to fight to preserve that quality of life. If you like these type of town hall, I want to continue doing these as we go forward. God willing, I'll be your judge in January, and I think some of the commissioners are willing to do this. I think this is a good way to get information out to y'all. And just let us know if you like doing it. We'll continue doing it. Thank you so much.
Anyone who parks in the Burger King lot